It was a cold December morning. Kabir woke up late again, the alarm ringing for the 5th time before he finally shut it off. His room was a mess. Unfinished projects scattered across his desk. His phone buzzed with reminders he didn't care to check. For months, this had been his life, tired, unmotivated, stuck in a routine that felt like a slow crawl through endless days. He once had big dreams. He wanted to start his own business, travel the world, and make his parents proud. But somewhere along the way, he'd lost his spark. Every failure chipped away at his confidence, until all that was left was a version of himself he no longer recognized. That morning, he sat on the edge of his bed, head in his hands, wondering where it all went wrong. He thought about all the times he'd promised to start over tomorrow, all the plans he'd made but never followed through. The weight of his own disappointment was heavier than ever. His phone lit up. A message from his best friend Arov. Another interview rejected. Bro, maybe we're just not cut out for this. Kabir stared at the screen. That sentence sank deep. Maybe we're not cut out for this. He realized that's what he'd been telling himself, too. He walked to the mirror and looked at his reflection. He saw someone tired, defeated, but not broken. He whispered to himself, "No one's coming to fix my life. It's on me." Something about those words hit differently. It wasn't dramatic or loud, but it was real. That was the day he decided to change. He started small. He cleaned his room, threw away the clutter, and made a list of everything he wanted to change. The goals weren't massive wake up early read. Every day, exercise, apply to jobs, and learn something new. He taped that list to the wall above his desk, a constant reminder that his life could be rebuilt, one small choice at a time. The first week was hard. Waking up early felt impossible. Workouts drained him. Some days, he just wanted to quit. But every time he thought about giving up, he reminded himself he wasn't doing this to impress anyone. He was doing it because he was tired of being stuck. Slowly, his habits began to change. His mornings became quieter, more focused. He started to feel something he hadn't felt in a long time: discipline. One evening, scrolling through old photos, he found a picture of himself from 2 years ago, smiling, full of energy, surrounded by friends. He remembered that version of himself, the one who believed he could do anything. That night, he made a promise to find that person again, no matter how long it took. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Kabir started applying for jobs again, but this time he didn't let rejection discourage him. Instead, he used each failure as feedback. He improved his skills, learned from his mistakes, and stayed consistent. Every morning, he wrote in a journal, listing 3 things he was grateful for. It was simple, but it transformed his mindset. Gratitude began to replace frustration, and purpose replaced confusion. His friends noticed the difference. Arav, still lost in his own struggles, asked him one day, "What's your secret, man? How are you staying so positive?" Kabir smiled and said, "I stopped waiting for things to get better. I decided to get better myself." That line stayed with Arav long after their conversation. One day, Kabir got a call for an interview at a startup he admired. He was nervous, but he was also confident. When the interviewer asked, "What makes you different from the others?" Kabir replied, "Maybe I'm not different, but I don't quit anymore. I learned that change doesn't happen overnight. Happens the day you decide you've had enough of being average." The interviewer smiled, impressed by his honesty. A week later, Kabir got the job. He called his parents to share the news. His mother's voice trembled with pride as she said, "I always knew you would find your way." He hung up and sat quietly, feeling a deep sense of peace. It wasn't just about the job, it was about everything he had done to get to that point. He realized that real change doesn't come from a big opportunity, it comes from a small decision, made in an ordinary moment. When you finally say, "I'm done living like this." Even after getting the job, Kabir didn't stop growing. He continued his routines, worked hard, and kept learning. Some days were still tough, but he no longer ran from challenges. He faced them. Head down, one night he wrote in his journal, "Change begins the moment you stop blaming circumstances and start taking responsibility." He was amazed at how far he'd come from that morning when he could barely get out of bed. Months later, His company invited him to speak to new employees about motivation. Standing in front of the crowd, Kabir looked at the faces full of uncertainty, just like his once had been. He took a deep breath and began, "I'm not here to tell you that success comes easy. It doesn't. It took me failing multiple times to understand that the only real failure is giving up on yourself. The day I decided to change my life wasn't special. I didn't wake up to good news or a miracle. I just got tired of being the version of myself who waited for change instead of creating it. That's the secret. Don't wait for the right time. Make this moment the right time." As he spoke, the room was quiet. His words weren't grand, but they were honest. After the event, an intern came up to him and said, "Sir, I really needed to hear that. I think today might be my day to change my life, too." Kabir smiled and replied, "Then don't just think it. Start." That night, Kabir walked home under the city lights. The same streets that once felt heavy with disappointment now seemed to glow with purpose. He realized that life doesn't transform in an instant. It changes slowly. One decision, one habit, one day at a time. The hardest part is choosing to begin. But once you do, everything starts to shift. As he stood by his window, looking at the world outside, he whispered the same words that had started it all. "No one's coming to fix my life. It's on me." He smiled, knowing that this time, he wasn't just saying it. He was living it. And that made all the difference. The day he decided to change his life wasn't the day everything got easier, but the day he found the strength to never stop trying. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. And remember, your journey starts the moment you decide to begin.